Football players are humans. As much as we try to put them on pedestals, they're human beings made of flesh and bone just like you and me. Some of them are iconic. They go down in history and will always be celebrated no matter what world we live in. The majority is plain average, but there are a select few that don't quite fall into either of those categories. It's almost as if their careers were simply the stuff of legends due to how unreal they looked.
He said it!
Some of these players might not have been active when you started watching football, so they will probably feel even more unreal. In my case, they all came up when I was already a fan, but they either vanished or I was simply too young to fully understand their legendary careers. And what better example than Marco Ferreira? You see, I knew Marco Ferreira. I still keep his card from his days as a Penafiel player as one of my most valuable possessions because, simply put, this guy is out of this world. Before even debuted as a pro, he already had connections with Paulo Futre, who in turn facilitated his move from Tirsense to Atletico Madrid. He obviously wasn't up to standards, so what does he do to improve his football? He accompanies his butt buddy Futre to Japan, probably to partake in some powdery experiences. I'm just kidding, but the rest of his career sure looked like a coke-like high. After a couple of years grinding in lower-ranked teams like Passos Ferreira or Setúbal, Marco had the chance of a lifetime to join Mourinho's Porto, and from there onwards, he would conquer the UEFA Cup, the Champions League, 2 Portuguese league titles and 2 other domestic titles. After departing from Porto, Marco would later have the chance to play for Benfica, again as a bench player without much influence. And to cap it all off, this motherfucker still managed to bag one of the most coveted Portuguese models of his time. His career is like someone had collected the Dragon Balls, wished for an insane career, but forgot to wish to actually be a great footballer. Don't get me wrong, he wasn't trash, but he was a bang average player that had an iconic career many legends could only wish for. Sometimes you're blessed with tremendous luck. In other cases, you're blessed with a thunderous career full of incredible highs, devastating lows, and the sour gift of being forgotten before you even retire. Vincent Aboubakar's name might not sound familiar to many fans, but it sure gave hope to many Porto fans. At just 18 years old, the striker made his World Cup debut as a substitute in the 2010 World Cup as a complete unknown. 4 years went by and Aboubakar continued to evolve until he finally reached the Dragons' radar. After another unsuccessful World Cup appearance, Aboubakar made a jump to FC Porto. At first sight, it looked like an exact copy of Jackson Martinez. Both were fast, agile, lethal goal scorers, and both were total steals by the Dragons. I mean, it wouldn't be so unfathomable that a player like Abu, even at 22, could be playing for a Premier League team. After Jackson departed, Aboubakar immediately made his presence felt with 6 goals in the first month of the season. But then, out of nowhere, he went cold. He played like he didn't care, and the fans completely turned against him. Of course, it didn't help that during his loan to Besiktas, he professed his love for the Turkish club and snubbed Porto. And who could forget that game when, as a Porto player, he joined Besiktas' locker room to celebrate with his former teammates after a win against his own club. In most cases, that attitude would culminate in his exit from the club, but Aboubakar was simply on another level when he returned in 17-18. Alongside Marek and Brahimi, he helped guide the Dragons to their first league title in 5 years. But then, just a few months into the 18-19 season, Abu tore his knee ligaments apart. From this point onwards, he became an afterthought for most Portuguese fans until he resurfaced again, this time in the 2022 World Cup. In a David vs Goliath encounter against Brazil, Aboubakar scored a late winner that marked Cameroon's first World Cup victory in over 20 years. But Aboubakar forgot he had already received a yellow, so he was sent off, and thanks to Switzerland's win, Cameroon was eliminated either way. Well, at least that performance must have gotten him more recognition, right? I don't know, have you thought about him lately? Besides, his club at the time, Al Nassr, let him go because Ronnie had arrived, and since there was a cap on the number of foreign players each Saudi club could hold, keeping Abouba under contract was futile. But you know a player that almost every club would have wanted to keep under contract during the 2000s? Diego Ribas. Hailed as an ex-Kaká, Diego rose to fame as part of a Santos golden generation that won 2 Brazilian titles before he turned 18. Soon after, Diego joined the Dragons with the heavy burden of replacing Deco, and to be honest, even though I started watching religiously in his second Porto season, I have no memory of him in a Porto shirt. I only knew it happened because I used to collect stickers and cards. But now looking back, it was obvious why he didn't prosper there. He joined in an unstable season when the most important players departed and then had to deal with Tirsense, an old-school Dutch coach whose tactical and training mindset simply didn't align with Diego's bohemian personality. But that's not unreal. What's unreal is that this motherfucker played for Porto, Juve, Atletico, Werder Bremen and Wolfsburg when they were both genuine Bundesliga title contenders. He always came in as a player to watch out for. However, other than his stint with Werder Bremen, he always felt lackluster. But it wasn't that disappointing like Felix or Sanchez, where the fans immediately deem him a flop. It was always a constant, it doesn't suck, but it doesn't quite fit in a club. It's incredible to me that in a world of absolutes, Diego never managed to disappoint anyone despite failing to impress and coming in with huge hype in every move. Another baller from the same era as Diego who came with the same amount of hype was none other than Fabrizio Miccoli. The Italian had it all. The flair, technical skill, efficiency and creativity. He was like a mix of Romario and Maradona, but unfortunately he never lived up to the initial hype. It wasn't because he wasn't playing well, but at the end of the day, joining Juve basically ruined his career. He had problems with Fabio Capello, got his ass loaned time and time again. To make it worse, he testified against Juve in a Calciopoli scandal, which many attribute as the reason why he was never called up again. Because trust me when I tell you, Miccoli wholeheartedly deserved to play for Italy. He was goal at Benfica, he scored many important goals, including one to eliminate Liverpool. Sadly, even though he claims Benfica was his favorite place to play in his career, he couldn't stay in the Portuguese capital. Juve wanted to make money, so they sold him to the highest bidder. Personally, I wish he had stayed longer in my league, but he would continue to be brilliant in Palermo, eventually helping the club match their best ever Serie A finish in 2010. However, the sad part is that Miccoli tainted his image by becoming a convicted criminal. Yeah, this guy, just like his idol Maradona, liked to connect with members of the Sicilian Mafia. But while Maradona just liked to get drugs and hookers from them, Miccoli was a full-on mobster. He extorted several people and ended up with a 3-year sentence in court. Now, some of you know I'm a Porto fan, some of you assume I hate Benfica. But one of my favorite players as a kid was none other than Mantorras. To most international fans, he's a complete unknown, but in Portugal, his story is mythical and hard to believe if you weren't there. Mantorras was an Angolan prodigy that Benfica discovered playing for Alverca. He was unpredictable, lethal and fun to watch. Benfica was so confident in his potential that they even rejected Barcelona's attempts to get him and claimed that Mantorras would only leave for 19 million. That might seem average nowadays, but back in 2001, it was a ridiculous value. Unfortunately, since Benfica had a much more limited squad, Mantorras was forced to play time and time again, even when he wasn't fit to do so. From 2002 until 2004, Mantorras went under the knife several times, but his knee injuries were never properly treated. And before he even reached 25, he was basically done, only holding on because football was everything he ever knew. But even though he was chronically injured, Mantorras' last years were perhaps even more iconic than his initial rise. Time and time again, Benfica would be playing poor football, the fans in the stands starting to lose hope, but then out of nowhere, just like that little bit of blue sky opening up behind the clouds, the coach would tell Mantorras to warm up. The stadium got up in a frenzy, everyone believed again, the team felt the aura around them, and soon after, the ball would be behind the keeper, guided by the prodigy that never became a reality. There's no real happy ending to this story, and to be fair, I don't think you could say there is for any of the players I've mentioned. But how many times do you remember having a dream that had a fitting ending? Most dreams are nonsensical, wild, and usually end abruptly without explanation. That's what I feel about the careers I've talked about today. In a world based around stats, it's cool to look into players that didn't quite fit the mold, but were still able to entertain us and make me talk about them long after they were gone. On a last note, I wanna shout out JibRules. I mean, not that it needs a shout out, he's fucking 10 times bigger than Thorn FC, but I took inspiration from this video he made and decided to adapt it for the Portuguese and Brazilian context. Either way, go give him a watch if you want. Or if you want to continue binging videos about Portuguese football and feel nostalgic about times that will never come back, then watch this one about the closest I've ever seen Portugal come to winning the World Cup. I'll see you there.